The conference room aboard Kepler Station buzzed with tension as Captain Jake Morrison reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Outside the reinforced windows, dozens of alien ships from across the galaxy docked and departed, carrying goods, diplomats, and secrets. Jake had spent 5 years at this neutral station, watching the delicate dance of interstellar politics. But today felt different. The holographic display showed red markers spreading across human space like a disease. Vraxis ships, lots of them. The reptilian empire had been poking at human defenses for months, testing response times and fleet movements. Jake's instincts told him something big was coming. "They don't believe it," said Lieutenant Marcus Webb, Jake's security officer. The young man stood at attention, his jaw tight with frustration. "The Vraxis think our reputation is just propaganda. They think we bluff." Jake couldn't blame them entirely. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 30 years ago, emerging from their little blue planet with primitive fusion drives and weapons that made alien engineers laugh. But humans learned fast, terrifyingly fast. Within a decade, human ships matched alien technology. Within 2 decades, human tactics had rewritten military doctrine across the galaxy. The other species learned to fear humanity through hard lessons. Humans didn't surrender when outgunned. They adapted when faced with superior technology. They showed a creativity in warfare that disturbed even the most aggressive alien empires. Most importantly, humans remembered every slight, every insult, every attack. They were patient in their revenge and thorough in their victories. But the Vraxis were arrogant. Their empire had crushed dozens of smaller civilizations over the centuries. They had advanced weapons, powerful ships, and a military tradition that stretched back thousands of years. They looked at humanity's brief history and saw weakness, not potential. The alarm shattered Jake's thoughts. Red lights flashed across the command center as emergency broadcasts flooded every channel. Jake's blood ran cold as he read the first reports. New Portland, a farming colony of 20,000 humans, was under attack. Vraxis battleships had jumped into orbit and were deploying ground forces. "All human ships are responding," Marcus reported, his fingers flying across his console. "Fleet Command is scrambling the 3rd Battle Group. They'll reach New Portland in 18 hours. Jake watched the battle unfold through drone footage and sensor data. The Vraxis came with overwhelming force, expecting quick surrender. Instead, they found colonial militia fighting from every building, every farm, every patch of forest. Human civilians with hunting rifles held off professional soldiers for hours. When the first human warships arrived, they found a ground force that refused to break despite impossible odds. The space battle was brutal. Human ships traded blows with Vraxis cruisers in a savage display of firepower. 2 human destroyers were lost, but they took 4 Vraxis ships with them. The human admiral used a tactic no alien had ever considered, deliberately ramming a crippled frigate into a Vraxis carrier at relativistic speed. The explosion lit up half the system. Within 24 hours, the Vraxis attack was broken. Their surviving ships retreated, leaving behind thousands of dead soldiers and burning wreckage. The galaxy watched and remembered why they feared humanity. But then something changed. A broadcast went out on all frequencies. Vraxis Commander Zeralth appeared on screens across known space, his reptilian features twisted in anger. Behind him stood 30 human prisoners, civilians captured from an outlying research station before the main attack. Men, women, and children bound and frightened. "Humans," Zeralth hissed, his translator rendering his words in cold, mechanical tones. "You have proven worthy adversaries, but now you will prove your wisdom. Withdraw all forces from this sector within 72 hours, or these prisoners die. We will broadcast their executions across the galaxy. You have 3 days to decide if your pride is worth their lives." The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. Jake felt sick. This was different from open battle. The Vraxis had taken the fight to a place where human military strength meant nothing. If Earth sent the fleet, the hostages died. If they withdrew, humanity looked weak and invited more attacks. Either choice led to disaster. "What do we do?" Marcus asked quietly. Before Jake could answer, his secure terminal chimed with an incoming message. "Priority Alpha classification, eyes only." Jake's security clearance was high, but he'd never received an Alpha message before. His hand shook slightly as he entered his codes. The message was brief. Extremely brief. Just 3 lines of text that made Jake's confusion deepen. Fleet withdrawal authorized. New Portland sector to be evacuated per Vraxis demands. Special package en route to your location for coordination support. Jake read it 3 times. Earth was backing down. Impossible. Humanity never abandoned its people. Every war, every conflict, every hostage situation in human history ended the same way. We bring our people home, no matter the cost. This made no sense, sir, Marcus prompted. Fleet's pulling back, Jake said slowly, still trying to process the orders. We're complying with Vraxis demands. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. We're abandoning them? That's not possible. That's not who we are. I know, Jake said. But orders are orders. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. Alien species watched with satisfaction as humanity's reputation crumbled. The Vraxis celebrated their victory. Other aggressive empires began planning their own moves against human space. If the mighty humans could be broken by simple hostage-taking, then perhaps they weren't so dangerous after all. But Jake noticed something odd in the message. Special package, coordination support, strange terms for a retreat, and why send anything to Kepler Station, a diplomatic outpost hundreds of light years from New Portland. 12 hours later, a ship dropped out of hyperspace near the station. It was small, dark, and moved with a silence that Jake's sensors almost missed. No identification transponder. No standard communication protocols. Just a docking request on a restricted military channel. Jake met the ship personally at the private military dock. The airlock opened with a whisper of pressure equalization. 6 figures emerged wearing black uniforms with no insignia, no rank markers, no identification of any kind. They carried equipment Jake didn't recognize and moved with a confidence that sent chills down his spine. The leader stepped forward, pulling off his helmet. He was younger than Jake expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that seemed to calculate everything around him in seconds. Captain Morrison, the man said simply. I'm Alex Turner. We need to borrow your communication array for about 70 hours. After that, the New Portland situation will be resolved. Resolved how? Jake asked. Earth ordered withdrawal. The hostages will be home safe, Alex interrupted. His smile didn't reach his eyes. The galaxy thinks they know what humanity is capable of. They've seen our fleets, our soldiers, our weapons. They think they understand us. Alex turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Jake. They're about to learn they've only met our soldiers. Now they'll meet our ghosts. The stealth ship Wraith cut through space like a shadow through darkness. Inside its cramped briefing room, Alex Turner studied the holographic display of the captured research station while his team prepared their equipment. They had done this type of mission dozens of times before, but each operation required perfect planning and flawless execution. The station sits in a valley surrounded by dense forest, Alex explained, zooming in on the terrain map. Vraxis have 300 soldiers on site, rotating patrols every 6 hours. They've established a standard perimeter with sensors calibrated for vehicles and aircraft. They're not expecting ground approach. Danny Price, the team's technology specialist, grinned as he checked his gear. He was small and wiry, the kind of person most people would overlook in a crowd, which made him perfect for intelligence work. Their security protocols are military standard for the Vraxis Confederacy, strong against conventional assault, completely blind to infiltration tactics. They're used to enemies who announce themselves. Hostage count? Asked Lisa Grant, the team medic. She was meticulously organizing her medical supplies, enough to treat anything from a scratch to a gunshot wound. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency born from too many field operations. 32 civilians, Alex replied. 21 adults, 11 children. They're being held in the main facility's eastern wing, formerly the station's residential section. Vraxis have them grouped in 3 rooms under guard rotation. Best intel suggests they're unharmed so far. Zralth wants them presentable for the execution broadcast. Kyle Chen whistled low while assembling his demolition equipment. The explosives expert had shoulders like a linebacker and hands that could wire a charge in complete darkness. 300 guards for 32 hostages. They're either very careful or very scared of us. Both, said Maya Rodriguez, looking up from her language database. She was studying Vraxis military communication protocols, committing phrases and response patterns to memory. As the team's linguist and cultural specialist, Maya could blend into almost any alien environment with the right preparation. After the New Portland battle, they know humans don't quit. They're expecting a massive assault, which is exactly why we're doing the opposite, Alex said. We go in quiet, extract the hostages without alerting the main force, and disappear. The Vraxis will wake up one morning and find empty rooms. No firefight, no casualties on our side, and if we do this right, They won't even know we were there until it's too late. The Wraith approached New Portland from the night side of the planet, using the moon's shadow to mask its approach. The ship's stealth systems were military secrets that combined human innovation with technology borrowed from 3 different alien civilizations. None of those civilizations had agreed to share that technology, but humanity had a talent for taking what it needed. Alex stood in the drop bay, checking his gear one final time. His tactical suit was a masterpiece of engineering, equipped with active camouflage, environmental controls, medical monitors, and enough weapons to fight a small war. But the real weapon was training. Special operations soldiers represented the absolute peak of human military capability. Selected from millions and trained for years in every environment, every situation, every possible scenario. Team leaders, final check, Alex said over the secure channel. One by one, his team reported ready. Danny with his electronic warfare suite, Lisa with her medical gear and close quarters weapons, Kyle with enough explosives to level the entire facility if needed, Maya with her infiltration kit and linguistic database, and Alex himself carrying the weight of command and the responsibility for bringing everyone home alive. Drop in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Weather is cooperating. Winds are light, cloud cover is optimal. You'll be invisible to ground sensors. The drop pods were coffin-sized containers designed for one purpose: getting special operations soldiers from orbit to ground without being detected. They used ablative heat shields, minimal propulsion, and trajectory calculations that would make most pilots refuse to fly them. Alex had made over 50 combat drops. It never got easier. 10 seconds. Good hunting, Shadow Team. The bay doors opened to the black void of space. Alex felt his pod release, then the sickening sensation of free fall as New Portland's gravity took hold. The pod's heat shield glowed cherry red as atmospheric friction built up. Inside, Alex monitored his descent path, watching altitude numbers blur downward. At 10,000 meters, the drogue chute deployed, slowing his descent just enough to prevent the pod from burning up. At 2,000 meters, the main chute opened and Alex felt the jarring deceleration. At 500 meters, the pod's bottom section jettisoned, exposing him to the rushing wind. At 100 meters, his personal gravitic dampener activated, easing him to a soft landing in the middle of a clearing 15 kilometers from the target. Alex popped the pod's remaining structure and immediately took cover in nearby bushes. His suit's camouflage shifted to match the surrounding vegetation. 5 other impacts registered on his tactical display as his team landed in a loose circle around him. Sound off, Alex whispered. Danny, green. Lisa, green. Kyle, green. Maya, green. Roger. Phase 1 complete. Begin patrol pattern analysis. Radio silence unless emergency. We move in 20 minutes. The team spread out through the forest, becoming invisible in the darkness. This was where special operations differed from regular military. A conventional force would have landed in force with air support and armored vehicles. They would have announced their presence and overwhelmed the enemy with firepower. Shadow Team 7 would spend hours in the dark, watching and learning, understanding the enemy's patterns before making a single hostile move. Alex crawled to a position overlooking the valley. Through his enhanced optics, he could see the captured research station lit up like a beacon. Praxis guards walked predictable patrol routes, their movement suggesting boredom rather than alertness. They expected an attack from the sky or a ground assault with heavy weapons. They never considered that 6 humans might already be in position, watching them, learning their routines, preparing to dismantle their entire operation. Danny's voice crackled in Alex's ear, barely above a whisper. I'm into their communication network. Security is decent, but nothing special. They're using standard military encryption. Give me an hour and I'll have full access. Do it, Alex confirmed. Lisa, what's your read on patrol patterns? Predictable, Lisa reported. They rotate every 6 hours on the hour. No randomization, no variation. They're following doctrine, not adapting to circumstances. Kyle, structural analysis? Main building is reinforced concrete. Typical colonial construction. Load-bearing walls are marked on the original blueprints. I can create exit routes if needed. Give me access, in 3 hours I can bring down specific sections without touching the hostage areas. Maya, ready for close approach? Affirmative. I've identified 3 guard positions where I can replace personnel without alerting others. Their uniform markings indicate low-rank soldiers. I can mimic their movement patterns. Alex smiled in the darkness. This was why they were the best. Each team member was an expert in their field, capable of operating independently but devastating when working together. The Vraxis had 300 soldiers. Shadow Team 7 had 6. But those 6 humans represented more capability than most alien militaries could deploy in a battalion. "All right, team. Here's how we do this," Alex said quietly. "We have 68 hours until the execution deadline. We'll use 48 hours for reconnaissance and preparation. The final 20 hours we execute. Danny will compromise their systems. Maya will get inside for close intelligence. Kyle will prepare structural charges. Lisa and I will handle patrol elimination and route security. When we move fast and we move silent. Understood?" 5 confirmations came back. "Then let's show these lizards what humans can really do." The first 40 hours passed like a slow nightmare for the Vraxis guards. They didn't know it yet, but their facility was already compromised. Danny worked his magic from a concealed position in the forest, sending invisible signals that wormed their way into the Vraxis communication network. At first, he just watched and listened, learning their protocols and mapping their systems. Then he began to make small changes. A sensor would glitch for a moment, showing movement in an empty corridor before returning to normal. A guard's communication device would crackle with static at random intervals. Lights would flicker in empty rooms. None of it was dramatic enough to trigger an alarm, but it created an atmosphere of unease that spread through the facility like a virus. "They're starting to notice," Danny reported to Alex. "I'm picking up increased chatter about equipment malfunctions. Some guards are requesting reassignment because they feel uncomfortable in certain sections." "Perfect," Alex replied. "Keep the pressure steady but subtle. We want them nervous, not alert." While Danny worked on their minds through technology, Kyle approached the problem physically. Over 2 nights, he crawled within meters of the facility, using advanced imaging to map the building's structure in detail. He identified weak points, calculated blast patterns, and positioned tiny shaped charges at critical locations. Each explosive was barely larger than a coin, designed to be invisible unless someone knew exactly where to look. The charges served multiple purposes. If the operation went wrong, Kyle could bring down specific walls to create escape routes while leaving the hostage areas intact. If they needed a distraction, controlled explosions could simulate an attack from a different direction. And if everything failed completely, the entire facility could be collapsed in a way that would bury evidence and create chaos for extraction. Maya's work was the most dangerous. On the second night, she approached the facility wearing a stolen Vraxis uniform she'd taken from a patrol that no longer needed it. Her face was hidden behind a holographic mask that projected Vraxis features, technology so advanced that even the aliens who invented it didn't know humans had acquired it. She walked through the main entrance during a shift change when dozens of guards moved in and out, just another face in the crowd. Inside, Maya moved with confidence born from extensive preparation. She'd studied hours of video footage showing how Vraxis soldiers walked, how they interacted, how they responded to superiors. Her translator perfectly mimicked their language patterns. To any observer, she was just another low-ranking guard going about routine duties. She mapped the hostage locations personally, confirming intelligence reports and noting additional details. The prisoners were tired and frightened but physically unharmed. Vraxis guards treated them with professional detachment rather than cruelty. Maya memorized faces, noting which hostages might need medical attention during extraction, and which ones could help keep others calm during the operation. Most importantly, she accessed the facility's computer systems directly, plugging in a device that gave Danny complete control over internal security. Cameras, locks, sensors, life support, everything ran through computers that now answered to a human specialist sitting in a forest, 15 kilometers away. By hour 45, Shadow Team 7 owned the facility. The Vraxis didn't know it yet, but they'd already lost. Commander Zralth sat in his command center staring at reports that made no sense. Equipment malfunctions were spreading through the facility. 12 guards had requested transfers, claiming they felt watched in certain areas. 2 patrols had disappeared during routine perimeter checks, though searches found no trace of them or any sign of struggle. Security footage showed nothing unusual, but Zralth's instincts screamed danger. "Increase patrol frequency," he ordered his second-in-command. "Double the guards on the hostages. Something is wrong." "Sir, our orders are to maintain current disposition until the human deadline expires," the subordinate protested. Changing our posture might provoke them. The humans are already here, Zralth snapped. I can feel it. They're in the walls in the shadows watching us. Increase security now. The order went out, but it was already too late. Alex received word of the increased patrols and adjusted his timeline. They would move tonight 16 hours ahead of schedule. The Vraxis had good instincts, he had to admit. Unfortunately for them, good instincts weren't enough against preparation and training. At midnight local time, Alex gathered his team for final equipment checks. They'd been living in the forest for 2 days, sleeping in shifts, eating cold rations, and staying invisible to the enemy. Now came the hard part. Danny, you're primary for the first phase, Alex said. Once we're inside, you control everything electronic. Lights, doors, sensors, all of it. Make that building work for us. Already done, Danny replied confidently. I've mapped every system. When you move, you'll be invisible to their sensors. I can lock doors behind you and open them ahead of you. It'll be like walking through an empty building. Lisa, you're on medical from the moment we reach the hostages. Start assessments immediately and identify anyone who can't move quickly. We'll adjust extraction based on your evaluation. Lisa nodded, her medical gear already organized for quick access. Kyle, your charges stay passive unless I give the order. We're going for a clean extraction, but if things go wrong, I want options. Understood, Kyle confirmed. I can create exits, distractions, or if necessary, bring down the whole place. Your call. Maya, you'll guide us through internal protocols. If we encounter anyone we can't avoid, you're our voice. Can you maintain the disguise under stress? Maya smiled coldly. I've had dinner with Vraxis officers while wearing this mask. I can handle scared guards. Alex took a deep breath. This was the moment where planning met reality, where theory became action. Every special operations mission came down to this, the transition from preparation to execution. No matter how good the plan, no matter how extensive the training, there was always an element of chaos once things started moving. All right, team, let's bring our people home. They moved through the forest like ghosts, covering 15 kilometers in under 3 hours without making a sound. The Vraxis perimeter sensors registered nothing as Shadow Team 7 slipped past, using blind spots Danny had identified and routes Kyle had scouted. Guards walked their patrols, completely unaware that 6 humans moved through their defensive lines like smoke through a screen. At the facility's outer wall, Alex paused and checked his team. Everyone was ready. Danny sat at his portable control station, fingers dancing across haptic interfaces as he prepared to take over the building's systems. Kyle had his detonator ready, every charge armed and waiting. Maya adjusted her holographic disguise one final time. Lisa checked her medical scanner and weapons. Danny, execute Phase 2, Alex ordered quietly. Executing now, Danny replied. Hostage area sensors going offline. Guard communication in that section will experience interference. You have a 30-second window before they notice. Alex moved to a maintenance door that Kyle had already unlocked remotely. It opened silently, revealing a dark corridor that led into the facility's lower levels. The team slipped inside like water flowing through cracks, 6 shadows entering the fortress that held their people. Behind them, the door closed and locked itself. Inside the facility, camera feeds showed empty corridors while Shadow Team 7 walked past them. Guard stations reported normal status while humans moved through areas those guards were supposed to be watching. The Vraxis thought they controlled the facility. They were wrong. The humans had already won. They just didn't know it yet. Alex led his team deeper into the building, following a route Maya had memorized during her reconnaissance. Every step was planned, every turn calculated. This was the difference between special operations and conventional warfare. Regular soldiers fought with overwhelming force. Special operations soldiers won before the enemy realized there was a fight. The sedative gas was invisible, odorless, and completely effective. Danny released it through the ventilation system in carefully calculated waves, starting with the sections farthest from the hostages and working inward. Vraxis soldiers on patrol simply sat down as drowsiness overcame them, then slumped over into deep sleep. Their comrades assumed they were resting or checking equipment, at least for the first few minutes. Alex watched through his helmet display as green dots representing his team moved through the facility, while red dots marking Vraxis soldiers winked out one by one. Danny's control over the building's systems was total. Doors locked behind the team automatically. trapping sleeping guards in their own posts. Cameras showed empty corridors to the central command while humans walked past their blind sensors. The facility's own security system had become a weapon against its users. Approaching hostage area, Alex whispered into his comm. Maya, Lisa, you're with me. Danny, Kyle, hold position and maintain control. Copy, Danny responded. I'm reading 15 guards still active in your target zone. Gas is reaching them now. 30 seconds to full effectiveness. Alex, Maya, and Lisa crouched at a junction, waiting as the last conscious guards in the hostage area began to feel the effects of the sedative. Through the wall, Alex could hear confused voices as Vrax's soldiers tried to understand why they suddenly felt so tired. One tried to call for backup but found his communication device dead, jammed by Danny's electronic warfare. Another reached for his weapon, but his hands wouldn't cooperate properly. Zone clear, Danny confirmed. All hostiles in the target area are down. Alex moved quickly now, speed becoming more important than stealth. He reached the first door holding hostages and found it already unlocked, Danny having opened it remotely. Inside, he found 9 civilians huddled together, their faces showing fear that turned to shock as a human soldier appeared in the doorway. We're United States Special Operations, Alex said quietly, keeping his voice calm and authoritative. We're here to take you home. Stay quiet. Follow instructions exactly and we'll have you safe within the hour. A woman in her 40s, probably a scientist based on her clothing, stood up shakily. But the Vraxis said if anyone tried to rescue us, the Vraxis are asleep. Alex interrupted gently. They don't know we're here yet. Lisa, start medical assessments. I need to know who can walk and who needs assistance. Lisa moved among the hostages with practiced efficiency, checking each person quickly for injuries or conditions that might slow evacuation. Meanwhile, Maya opened the other 2 hostage rooms, repeating Alex's message and beginning to organize the civilians for movement. We have 3 who can't walk unassisted, Lisa reported. 1 elderly man with a heart condition, 1 pregnant woman in her 3rd trimester, and 1 child with a broken leg. Everyone else is mobile but scared. Understood, Alex replied. We'll adjust the extraction route for slower movement. Danny, confirm our path to the tunnels. Path is clear, Danny confirmed. But we have a problem. Commander Zralth just realized something's wrong. He's trying to contact the hostage area and getting no response. He's mobilizing his remaining active forces. Alex checked his tactical display. The sedative had worked perfectly on about 2/3 of the facility, but the command section and outer perimeter remained alert. Roughly 100 Vraxis soldiers were still combat effective, and they were starting to realize they were under attack. Kyle, execute diversion pattern 3, Alex ordered. Buy us 10 minutes. With pleasure, Kyle responded. Across the facility, shaped charges began detonating in a carefully orchestrated sequence. The explosions were small and precise, designed to sound like an assault from the western perimeter. Walls cracked, alarms blared, and Vraxis soldiers rushed toward what they thought was the main attack. In reality, they were running away from the actual operation. Alex led the hostages toward the facility's substructure, using service corridors that Kyle had prepared with additional escape routes. The civilians moved as quickly as they could, some helping others, parents carrying children, the stronger supporting the weaker. It was everything Alex had trained for, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, getting them out of danger through skill and planning. But Commander Zralth was no fool. Despite the explosions drawing most of his forces away, he sent a team to check on the hostages. 5 Vraxis soldiers reached the residential wing and found empty rooms and sleeping guards. The alarm went up immediately. They know, Danny warned. Zralth is redirecting forces to intercept you. How many? 40 soldiers converging on your position. You have maybe 3 minutes, Alex made a quick decision. Maya, Lisa, keep moving with the hostages. Head for extraction point Beta. Danny, guide them through the tunnels. Kyle, meet up with them and provide security. What about you? Lisa asked, already knowing the answer. Someone needs to slow down 40 angry lizards, Alex replied with a cold smile. I'll catch up. Alex positioned himself in a corridor junction that offered excellent cover and multiple firing angles. The first Vraxis soldiers appeared moments later, moving in standard military formation. They were trained, disciplined, and completely unprepared for what happened next. Alex had spent 2 days studying this facility, memorizing every corner, every sight line, every tactical advantage. He'd pre-positioned equipment at key locations, set up false trails, and prepared the battlefield exactly as he wanted it. The Vraxis were entering a kill zone designed by an expert and activated at the perfect moment. The first soldiers fell to precision fire before they even saw their attacker. Alex moved immediately, his position revealed by muzzle flash, relocating to a prepared secondary location before return fire arrived. The Vraxis tried to advance but found their path blocked by locked doors that wouldn't open despite their access codes. They tried alternate routes but ran into traps Kyle had set days earlier. Simple mechanical devices that created obstacles and confusion. Alex led them on a chase through the facility, appearing just long enough to engage and then vanishing like smoke. The Vraxis commander was screaming orders, trying to coordinate his forces but found his communications jammed and his security systems unresponsive. His own facility had become a maze designed to confuse him while guiding his enemy. Meanwhile, Maya, Lisa, and Kyle reached the extraction tunnels with all 32 hostages. The tunnels were partially collapsed sections that Kyle had stabilized and expanded, creating paths that led outside the Vraxis perimeter. The civilians crawled through narrow passages and climbed over rubble, exhausted but driven by hope of freedom. "We're clear of the facility," Maya reported. "All hostages accounted for. No casualties, roger that," Alex replied, breathing hard as he reloaded his weapon. "Danny, activate the finale." "Executing now," Danny confirmed. "Commander Zeralth, you have an incoming message." Inside the command center, Zeralth's main display suddenly changed. Instead of security feeds, it showed footage recorded over the past 2 days. He watched as human soldiers infiltrated his facility, moved through his corridors unseen, and methodically dismantled his operation. He saw his own guards falling asleep from invisible gas. He saw doors locking and unlocking at the human's command. He saw his hostages being led to freedom while his soldiers chased ghosts. The footage ended with a simple message in perfect Vraxis script, written by Maya during her infiltration. "You met our soldiers. Be grateful you didn't meet our ghosts." Alex emerged from the facility through an exit Kyle had prepared, sprinting across open ground while Vraxis forces scrambled in confusion behind him. He reached the forest line and kept running, covering ground with the enhanced endurance his training and equipment provided. Behind him, the facility erupted in chaos as Zeralth's remaining forces realized they'd been completely outplayed. 3 hours later, Shadow Team 7 reached the extraction point with all hostages safe. A stealth shuttle, waiting in the forest since before the operation began, loaded everyone quickly and efficiently. The civilians were given water, food, and medical attention while Alex did a final headcount. "All present and accounted for," Lisa confirmed. "Minor injuries only, nothing serious. Everyone's going home." Alex allowed himself a small smile as the shuttle lifted off, its stealth systems making it invisible to Vraxis sensors. On the ground below, Commander Zeralth searched his facility for an enemy that was already gone, trying to understand how 6 humans had infiltrated his fortress, rescued 32 hostages, and escaped without leaving a single casualty. The galaxy was watching, just as they'd watched the initial hostage-taking. But now they were watching footage that Danny had broadcast across every news channel, every diplomatic feed, every military intelligence network in known space. They watched human special operations soldiers move through an enemy facility like phantoms. They watched sophisticated security systems become weapons in human hands. They watched the impossible become routine. The message was clear. Humanity's conventional forces would fight any battle anywhere, but humanity's special operations would end wars before the enemy knew they'd begun. The council chambers of the Galactic Assembly had never been so quiet. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in stunned silence as the footage played for the 3rd time. They watched human soldiers infiltrate an impregnable facility, control systems they shouldn't have been able to access, and extract hostages while the enemy slept or chased shadows. The technical precision was frightening. The tactical execution was flawless. But what truly terrified the assembled aliens was the realization of what this meant. Ambassador Krell of the Vraxis Confederacy stood at the speaker's podium, his reptilian features showing an emotion rarely seen in his species: fear. "The council must understand," he said, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. "We had 300 soldiers, advanced sensors, military-grade security systems. We took every precaution, and these humans walked through our defenses like they didn't exist. Your facility was designed to withstand conventional assault. noted a delegate from the Zither Coalition. This was not conventional warfare. That's exactly the point, Krell hissed. Every military in this chamber has prepared for human aggression. We've studied their fleet tactics, analyzed their weapons technology, and developed countermeasures for their conventional forces. But this? How do you defend against an enemy that turns your own facility into a weapon? How do you fight soldiers you cannot see? Jake Morrison watched the proceedings from the diplomatic gallery, a slight smile on his face. The Vraxis had sued for peace within 48 hours of the New Portland extraction, offering territorial concessions and reparations that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. Other aggressive empires had quietly withdrawn border probes and canceled planned military operations. The galaxy was learning a new kind of fear. Captain Morrison, a voice said behind him. Jake turned to find Alex Turner, now wearing a formal uniform with no special operations insignia, just standard military decoration that gave no hint of his actual capabilities. Commander Turner, Jake replied. I thought you'd be halfway back to Earth by now. Debriefing at Earth Command, then assignment rotation, Alex explained. But I wanted to check in, see how the political situation was developing. Developing well, thanks to your team, Jake said, though I have to admit I'm still processing what I watched. I knew special operations existed, but I didn't understand the capabilities. You took apart a military facility without firing more than a few shots. That's the goal. Alex replied quietly. Conventional forces fight battles. Special operations prevent wars. Every soldier we don't have to send into combat, every ship we don't have to risk in battle, that's a success for us. Down in the assembly chamber, the debate continued. Species that had considered humanity merely dangerous now understood they faced something far more complex. Human conventional forces were openly feared across the galaxy, their ships and weapons technology matching or exceeding most civilizations. But special operations represented a different kind of threat, one that couldn't be countered with bigger guns or stronger shields. The question before this council, declared the assembly speaker, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, is how we proceed with human relations given this new information. The Vraxis incident has demonstrated capabilities that threaten the fundamental security of every member species. Threaten or protect, countered Ambassador Chen from Earth. She stood with calm confidence, letting the question hang in the air. Shadow Team 7 saved 32 innocent civilians from execution. They did so without causing unnecessary casualties or permanent damage. They demonstrated restraint alongside capability. Is that not the mark of a civilized military? The assembly murmured. It was hard to argue with the results. The hostages were home safe. The Vraxis facility was intact. Even the guards who had been sedated suffered no lasting harm. By any measure, the operation had been a model of precision and humanitarian focus, but the implications remained terrifying. You could do this to any of us, said a delegate from the Kelthian expanse. Any facility, any installation, any secured location. You've demonstrated that our security measures are ineffective against human special operations. Yes, Ambassador Chen replied simply. We could, and every single one of you has military capabilities that threaten Earth. The Vraxis alone have enough firepower to glass our planet from orbit. Should we demand you disarm because you have that capability? The logic was sound, but the fear remained. For 3 decades, the galaxy had learned to respect human conventional forces. They knew humans would fight fiercely if attacked, that they would never surrender when outgunned, that they possessed a talent for warfare that seemed disproportionate to their brief spacefaring history. But conventional warfare was understood. It followed rules, patterns, expectations. Special operations warfare operated in a realm most species had never seriously considered. Jake watched as various delegates proposed measures to counter human special operations, each suggestion more impractical than the last. Better sensors, tighter security protocols, improved communication encryption. Alex stood beside him, saying nothing but radiating quiet amusement. They don't understand, Jake said quietly. They think this is about technology. Technology helps, Alex admitted. But it's not the deciding factor. We succeed because of training, planning, and adaptability. Because we spend months preparing for missions that last hours. Because every operator on my team is an expert in multiple disciplines and can function independently, or as part of the unit. You can't censor your way out of facing people who are simply better at this than anyone else. That sounds arrogant. It's honest, Alex corrected. Humans aren't naturally superior soldiers. We're just absolutely committed to being the best at warfare because for thousands of years we had to be. Every civilization in this chamber developed in relative isolation or with limited conflict. Humans spent millennia fighting each other before we ever reached space. We wrote books about warfare, built entire philosophies around it, made it an art form. Special operations is the evolution of 10,000 years of combat experience. The assembly eventually reached a compromise that satisfied no one but avoided immediate conflict. Humans would refrain from special operations against council members, except in cases of direct threat to human lives. Council members would refrain from hostile actions that might trigger human military response. It was a fragile peace built on mutual fear rather than trust, but it was peace. 3 weeks later, Alex sat in a briefing room deep within a mountain complex in Colorado. Shadow Team 7 gathered around the holographic display, studying their next mission. Somewhere in the Andromeda sector, a rogue faction had taken human colonists hostage, believing Earth was too far away to respond and too focused on the Vraxis situation to notice. Intelligence suggests 20 hostages held in an underground facility, the briefing officer explained. The faction has minimal military training, but access to advanced weapons from black market sources. They're demanding ransom and territorial concessions. Time to target? Alex asked. 48 hours at maximum stealth velocity. Alex looked at his team. Danny was already analyzing the facility's technical specifications. Maya studied the faction's cultural background and language structure. Kyle examined geological surveys for tunnel options. Lisa reviewed medical protocols for hostile environment extraction. Gear up, Alex ordered. We leave in 6 hours. Across the galaxy, the rogue faction planned their demands, confident that their remote location and Earth's distant presence made them safe from retaliation. They didn't know that 6 humans were already burning toward their position, invisible and unstoppable. They thought they understood what humanity was capable of. They'd heard the stories about human soldiers, seen footage of human fleet battles, and calculated that they could risk one hostage situation before Earth could respond. They were about to learn the same lesson the Vraxis had learned. The galaxy feared humanity's conventional forces with good reason. Those forces were powerful, relentless, and unforgiving. But there was something worse than facing human soldiers in open battle. There was facing the soldiers that the galaxy never saw coming. Shadow Team 7's stealth ship dropped into hyperspace, carrying 6 operators toward another impossible mission. They would arrive in complete silence, infiltrate through security that the enemy thought was impenetrable, extract every hostage without casualties, and disappear before anyone understood what had happened, because that's what ghosts do. On Earth, military command tracked the mission on secure channels. In council chambers across the galaxy, diplomats debated human military capabilities and discussed security measures. In colonies and stations throughout human space, civilians went about their daily lives, unaware of the silent guardians who operated in the shadows. The galaxy had spent 30 years learning to fear humanity's conventional military might. Now they were learning about the soldiers who won wars without firing a shot, who ended conflicts before they began, who represented the absolute pinnacle of human military evolution. They were learning that when humans said they would protect their own no matter the cost, they meant it, not with threats or bluster, but with capability refined over generations and executed with surgical precision. The age of human dominance hadn't arrived.